Hello everyone, and welcome to this new tutorial about aligning the view on axis. Saying it like that, this title could sound a bit abstract, but you'll see it's very simple. So far we have learned we can transform an object using global axis orientation. Here for example, if I move the Gauss flare along y-axis, I move it in the same direction as the global y-axis. And we can see here that only y-axis value is changing. The view can also be oriented according to the global axis. There, for example, by clicking on the small y button here, I align my view on y-axis. And therefore, I have a view perfectly parallel to the XZ plane global orientation. In other words, we set a front view. Why is it useful? First, it allows us to set perfect front, side, and top views, etc., which is very practical to inspect our work. But in addition, it makes even more powerful the use of our G for move and R for rotation shortcuts to transform an object. Because if I use the G key to move an object, as we have seen in the previous videos, I move it using the orientation of the view, that is to say from left to right and from top to bottom, according to the view. But now our view itself is aligned to a global axis. So now, by moving the object from top to bottom and from left to right, I move my object on the global XZ plane. So only X and Z values are changing, exactly as if I was using the little green square here, but in a much more faster way. And it's the same to make a rotation. If I use the R key, I rotate the object on the global XZ plane, and therefore around the y-axis, without using a gizmo. And of course, to be more efficient than using a gizmo, using this way to transform an object by aligning the view must be very fast. And for that we use a keyboard shortcut. When you orient the view with the middle mouse button, if you hold the Alt key, the view will snap on axis. So here I align the view on X, so I have a side view, and there on Z to have a top view. And of course we can line up on either side, so negative X for a right view of the character, negative Z for a view from below, and negative Y for a view from behind. As you noticed, the view also snaps halfway, which allows us to have 3/4 front view, 3/4 back view, 3/4 back high view, 3/4 back bottom view, etc. Note that to have a perfectly aligned and flat view on an axis, our view must be set in orthographic projection and not in perspective. I'll explain it all to you. If we click on the little button here, we will switch from an orthographic projection, as we are here, to a perspective mode. What is the difference? Perspective simulates how we perceive space with our eyes and brain. A perception where all parallel lines meet at a point called the vanishing point, and where objects further are perceived smaller, and closer objects are perceived bigger. In orthographic projection, there is no deformation or vanishing point. Parallel lines are well perceived parallel, and everything is perceived flat. In this view, the Gauss Reaper and the Gauss flare are exactly displayed the same size, while in perspective mode the Gauss Reaper should be smaller because it is further away. So to sum up, orthographic projection, for photographers, is a bit like using a lens with infinite focal length and taking a picture from very, very far away. And for the players, it will remind you type of camera used in good old 2D games like Diablo 1 and 2. From a geometric point of view, this projection is called a cavalier perspective. To model or pose a miniature with a realistic preview of what it will look after being printed, it is better to be in perspective projection. If, on the other hand, we want to check things like parallelism, perpendicularity, flatness, symmetry, etc. Axis-aligned views in orthographic mode are very useful. There is an option in Preferences with which when you align the view on an axis, the view automatically switch to an orthographic projection, and if you align the view in any way, the view automatically switch to perspective. You can set this here in Edit menu, Preferences, Navigation tab, and check the Auto Perspective box. And that gives us this: if I leave Global Axis Alignment, the view automatically switch to perspective, and if I align again the view to an ax, it automatically switch to an orthographic projection. You will do what you want, but I don't really like objects jumping out at me like that when you switch from perspective to orthographic view. So I'm not using this option. Because, by the way, there is a fairly simple shortcut to switch from one projection to another. It is the 5 key on the numpad. Let's talk about shortcuts. With the numpad, using the 1 key, we will align the view on the y-axis in negative, so a view from behind. The 3 key aligns the view on the x-axis in positive, so a left view. And the 7 key aligns the view on positive z, so a top view. The 9 key is used to switch from a positive to a negative alignment along each axis. For example, here I am in top view, and with the 9 key, I invert the view from positive z to minus c, and therefore I switch from a top view to a bottom view, and vice versa. And it works the same from all the views. So for example, with a side view, I use the 3 key to switch to an alignment on positive x, and then I invert with the 9 key to switch to negative x, which means a right view. They are not bad shortcuts, but I find that hitting the Alt key with the middle mouse button is not necessarily more intuitive, but at least faster. On the other hand, I like the keys 4, 8, 6, and 2 of the numpad. I'm talking about those which form a cross around the key 5. The key 4 makes a 15 degrees rotation of the sight towards the left. The key 8 makes a rotation 15 degrees up. The key 2 rotate the view down, and key 6 rotate it to the right. I like these shortcuts because it allows us to turn around our model, to inspect it a little, while releasing the mouse. It allows us to take a step back from our work after several hours of work. And finally, a last way to align the view on the axis, very fast and very practical. We have already seen it together at the beginning of this tutorial. It is this small wheel here. View. So it follows exactly the orientation of the view when you change it with the middle mouse button. And conversely, if we interact with the wheel, the view will be oriented following the wheel. And so if you simply click on one of the axes, the view will be aligned to this axis, or any axis, with a positive or negative direction, etc. Well, I think that's all for this video. Thanks for watching it, and see you soon.